You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today my guest is Leah Warshawski, co-director and producer of a wonderful documentary entitled Big Sonia. Welcome to the show, Leah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I sent you an email last night after I watched this film because I couldn't stop crying. I don't know how many tissues I went through when I was watching it last night. Oh my goodness, it's such a touching, inspiring documentary. So our guests know. Do you want to talk a little bit what the documentary is about, and then also how it came about?
Well, it came about more than 12 years ago. Sonia is my grandmother, and we'd always known that she had an interesting past and an interesting story, but a lot of people have interesting stories in their family. And it wasn't really until my husband, Todd, came to her shop with me for a little kind of development scouting meeting.
And tell the audience what the shop is. What kind of shop she has.
She runs a tailor shop. And so, I'd grown up going to the shop, and there were tons of funny stories about the shop, and it's kind of the hub of all the action, but I just wasn't really sure if it could be anything more than a short film or anything more than a family film until Todd started investigating with me, and the two of us together kind of came to the conclusion that yes, this her story, and not just her story, but the story of how she impacts other people could be a film. And so we actually had started out making a short film and really had the goal of keeping it under 40 minutes. But the more we went through production and the more we unraveled and the more interviews we did with family and people out in the world and teenagers and inmates, it became really clear that it needed to be a feature film. So it ended up at 93 minutes. And we've made actually a lot of different versions. We did a full theatrical run. We have a 1-hour version now that's on PBS. And that's what we're promoting. We have an educational version that's 45 minutes. We have a broadcast version that's 52 minutes. So in the last 12 years, we've had many, many iterations of the film, and all with the goal of education and impact. And so it's kind of morphed into something we didn't expect when we started. And of course, I want everybody to watch the film, so I don't really want to divulge all of the details about what it's about, but I can tell you that it's unlike any other movie about a Holocaust survivor you've ever seen. And it ebbs and flows, and it's, there are funny moments and sad moments and then funny moments again. And there are a couple of scenes in the movie that people have told us, they've never seen before in any movie about a Holocaust survivor. So I would love for people to see it and kind of make their own decisions about it. It is really unique and educational, and we're very proud of it.
And you should be. You really should be. It is unique.
Thank
and
you.
It's very special. How difficult? I mean, there's so much to it too. And you're right. And I don't know. I'm thinking you're going through all the different edited versions that you have. How did you decide at what to cut, what to edit it out?
Well, that's the hardest part for any filmmaker. I think in a lot of cases, it wasn't up to us. It's dictated by what the networks need. They give us a time that we have to stick to, and there's pretty much no leeway around that.
Right.
So it was difficult. For the educational version, we did bring in a lot of educators and teachers to help us figure out what would be most impactful for their classrooms. So we had a lot of advisors helping us say this, we want this in our class. We don't need this. We need this. So they helped us put that puzzle together. For PBS, it was very difficult because it's a chance for us to have, millions and millions of people watch it. And it's very, very tough to cut down an hour and a half into an hour. And there's so much content in there. That was the hardest one we've had to do. And, we made a cut that checked all of the boxes. and we slept on it. And in the morning we woke up and said, this isn't the cut that we feel good about putting into the world. And so we went back and re-edited and added a little bit of the humor, I think, which is what we were both missing in it. Yes, Sonia's a survivor, and she went through, horrible experiences during the war, but what makes the movie engaging and what makes it unique are these moments that are relatable and universal and sometimes funny and quirky. And that's what made the film doable for us. And so we added in just a little bit of that and feel good about it. But again, it's really tough. I don't think everybody understands how hard it is to cut content in that way when you've spent a lot of creative energy debating every single second of the movie. It's tough.
It's your baby. And so
Yeah.
it's your baby that you you birth basically. And how do you decide what to change? I mean, the version that I watched is the PBS version.
Mm-hmm.
That's the version that was sent to me. And I, as I said to you, I couldn't stop crying. It was very impactful. It was funny. It was everything that you've just described. So
good. Thank you. Yeah, that feels good.
You're welcome. Because I didn't know what the 93.
You don't know. Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of things in there. Yeah. People who've seen both ask us, oh my gosh, where's that? And why'd you have to leave that out? And so you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right, 100%. So I can attest that PBS version is absolutely moving, inspiring. It has everything you would want.
Thank you. Yeah, that feels good. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. And I say that honestly to you.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to butter you up.
No, I know. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. How difficult was it to have Sonia tell her story? Because what I gathered from this, that she really didn't talk very much about what had happened in her life earlier. And so what prompted now? Why now did she start to tell her story?
Well, she started talking about it in her 70s, I believe, and she's 96 now.
Wow.
And so she had been talking about it before we made the film. But her oldest daughter, Regina, was really the one that helped her get her story to a wider audience, because Regina created a PowerPoint presentation and started going with her mom to talk. And so the two of them together have their presentation that they do. And that, the support from Regina was what really was the turning point. I think it helped her speak to more people, because at first she was just talking to book clubs, or anyone who would ask her to talk to their family or their kids. And now, not now, but, in her prime, I guess, when she was doing a lot of speaking, it started being only for, she would say, well, if it's not 500 people or more, then I can't do it, just because it's so much energy. So, COVID stopped all of that. She hasn't done, and she doesn't use technology, so it's not possible to do things on Zoom, and the phone is a mess. So really, stopped telling her story in that way during COVID, but we have the film, and there's no substitute for going to hear Sonia in person. But the film gives us a way to reach a really huge audience with her story in the best way that we can.
Yes, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about there's a lot of things I want to touch on, but going to the high school, or going to schools, grade schools, actually, all the schools. I mean, she goes to all different levels, correct?
Yeah, she was doing middle school and high school, mostly. College. She always says, like starting in 6th grade, I think.
And the impact that she's had on these students it's really just amazing. And then you go back to one of the students that she had talked to when she was, what, 13 or so, 13 or 14. And then you fast forward to when she graduated from high school. Was she in college, I think? And so and what she has decided to do with her
and that's
life.
just one person, that's one person out of hundreds of thousands of middle schoolers that we don't know. We could, because we don't follow all of them. I'm sure there is a lot more impact that we're not aware of. But I think what happens when she goes and speaks with middle school students is that they realize that she was their age when she watched her mom die, in a concentration camp. So they find that out and they think about their own families, and all of a sudden it's very relatable. And that's certainly what we did when we were filming and we went to middle school. And there's that really impactful scene in the movie where she's speaking with a group of middle school students and they all start talking about their own trauma. And that's what meeting her does for you. You can't help it. You can't help but think about your own family when you hear about her family. So, we made the film with them in mind, and we made the film thinking that we really need to make an impact with the next generation. And Sonia is in a unique position to do that because, she's so small and mighty and colorful. They just seeing her is an experience. And we've really enjoyed speaking and doing programs with middle school and high schoolers because they're impressionable and that you can have a conversation with them and relate her story to their family and they get it. And it's been a real joy to be able to share the film with them. And again, we haven't done it in person since COVID, but we still do a lot of online programs. And I hope that we can continue to do that. We're always looking for opportunities to share with middle schools and high schools in person. If we can, I hope we can do that again.
I hope so too. I think what her message and what she's talking about is extremely important in today's world right now, with all of these people that are coming out and denying that the Holocaust happened. It's just got to be shocking to her. Then every day there's something else out there about a Holocaust denier. Have you ever talked to her about that? How she feels about that?
Yeah, she's, she battles with kind of anxiety and depression anyway. And I think now she's really having a rough time. So it's a slippery slope to try and talk about those things with her. I'm actually trying to stay away from it just because she goes to a really dark place. So yes, she's aware that the world is pretty messed up at the moment. And she's 96. So I don't want to add to that stress, but she's not in a great place. No. It's been really tough.
Yeah, that is tough. Does she still have her tailor shop?
Yep, she still has the shop, and she goes as much as she can. Her hours, she doesn't go as early. She's never been a morning person anyway. So you might catch her between noon and 2.
Those are the best working hours.
But that's her, that's her reason. I don't think she would, still be thriving if she didn't have the shop to manage.
I think it's so important. I think that's what keeps people young and youthful, is having something that you're passionate about, that you enjoy, that gives you a reason to get up and get out of bed every day and go see people, put on your makeup, and do your hair.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. It really does. It's amazing how many, and there's so many people who are living so long now. So I think so many of them are remaining active and vital. That's so important. That's so important. It keeps your mind going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very much. Very, very important.
Yeah.
And she's just amazing. She still has a tailor shop at 96. It's just
it's crazy.
Wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And I'm sure COVID, curtailed that a little bit too. I'm assuming during that time period.
Yeah.
let's talk about, how did she decide, or how did it come about that she decided to go to the prisons and talk to the inmates?
Well, her friend Sue Ellen Freed, who's also in the film, saw an article about Sonia in the newspaper. And Sue Ellen runs the Reaching Out from Within program in prisons. And as soon as she saw Sonia's story, she thought, well, the inmates would love to hear this in person. And so Sue Ellen reached out, and we kind of facilitated a meeting between them, and went with Sonia the first time that she went into the prison. And she's been a handful of times since. And Sue Ellen, understood that Sonia's story would be really relatable for the men and women that she works with. And it was. And it was, a joy for us, because it was the first time that I've really seen Sonia actually like impacted by somebody else's situation and story, because hers is so extreme. Nobody can really understand her unless you've been through it. And so speaking with the inmates is the closest that she can get, other than other survivors. And yeah, it's definitely one part of the film that a lot of people respond to and say that's their favorite part, and they've never seen that before. And I had not seen that before, although I know of another survivor who does go into prisons and speak. I just don't think it's not something that happens every day. And again, like, I'm glad we did it before COVID. We were able to include it in the film, and we've been back to some of those prisons to screen the film, and they just saw it. It was the PBS version was on KCPT in Kansas City, where Sonia lives. And I heard that some of the inmates saw it on PBS and that they couldn't finish it because it was too emotional.
Yes. Yeah, I can imagine. Well, it was emotional for me, and I'm not even part of that. So I can only imagine for the inmates that were in the film itself, and how you could see that being in her presence, hearing her story, was impacting them and changing their lives and how they felt. And that's the transformation again, that she's going around by sharing her story and transforming people as she goes. And that is just, if there's anything any of us can do in this lifetime, if we have that ability to help others and maybe in some way transform them. But look at what she's doing with this wide net. And also your film is doing it. Your film is getting it to that wider audience, as you said. And people who watch it will be transformed, and they will. You really will be. You'll start to think a little bit differently about how you do some things you do, and the things you say, and things like that. So
yeah, that's the goal.
That's why I love what I do. That's why I love talking to
absolutely
documentary filmmakers, because their films do, have that ability to change people's thinking in their lives.
Yeah,
very
it's
much
powerful.
Let's talk about the optimist creed, because that's what also drew your grandmother's friend to contact her. So let's talk about that.
The optimist. Well, the optimist creed, they recite it at the Reaching Out from Within meetings at the beginning of every meeting. And in the article that Sue Ellen read about Sonia, she saw that Sonia had that up in her shop. And so that was just another connection that kind of thought, oh, well, this is serendipity that we need to meet. And there's a international organization called Optimist International, and it's under their purview. So it's just another sign, I guess, from the universe that those two were supposed to meet and know each other, and they've become best friends since then. It's been really, really sweet to watch.
Very wonderful. And it's such a great creed too. So yeah, for everybody, it's the best way to live our lives, right?
I mean, if you can,
if you can, you try as much as you can.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult part of filming this for you, Leah?
There were a lot of difficult parts. I think just, it was a lot of, it took a toll on my kind of health and well-being over time, just because there was a lot of pressure to make it a great film. to finish it while Sonia was still alive. I mean, that was our number one goal, and you just have no guarantees about that. So that was challenging, felt a huge weight there. Funding the film, just like funding any film, was extremely difficult. It took us a very long time. I mean, I think it took, from the time we started till the time we premiered, I think it was about 10 years. So we, and that's solely based on funding. So it was tough. Everyone wants to see the film done, and it's a lot easier to raise money once they can understand the impact, but pitching it and developing it and producing it without any guarantees of how it's going to turn out and the impact it's going to make was really tough. Yeah, and then just making a film about your family. I think anyone who's done that would say the same thing. It's complicated. It's complicated, and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. And I have a big family, so that just makes it exponential.
Yeah. In the things I read, you talked about how it was for your father and his sisters, correct? That it was very difficult growing up because your grandfather was also a Holocaust survivor. Mm-hmm. Growing up in that environment, and they didn't really understand it, because I don't know, I got sort of gathered that they didn't talk about it, but yet there was this, whatever, I'm going to use the word heaviness or something that was going on, that was going on for the family, and that was difficult for your aunts and your dad. Can you, and then now you say you are the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor. So talk a little bit about that, what that means.
Well, anybody who, grew up in a family with survivors can, I think, feels that kind of rain cloud, or there's always stuff that's talked about and not talked about. And that's why if you meet, for my dad and his sisters, when they met other families, other kids of survivors, they have a connection, like an automatic connection. So unless you've been in that situation, it's hard to explain. You just know that there are things that happen that you don't talk about. And I'm sure a lot of families have traumas that they don't talk about, but Holocaust survivor families are pretty typical for not being very closed off, not divulging everything. It's just too difficult. So Sonia and John had friends who were survivors, and when they got together, they could talk freely about what happened, but they didn't want to tell a lot to their kids, just because they didn't want their kids to be burdened by it. But you can't help feeling that there's a burden as a kid or a grandchild. So there's these things that aren't talked about. And as you grow up, you discover more and more details and decide how much you want to know and how much you don't want to know, but it never goes away. You always have that history in your family.
What does Sonia think of the film? What are her thoughts after she saw it?
Well, fortunately, we finished it and she was in good health, and she was able to come to the premieres, both of the premieres, because we did Napa and New York in the same week. So
oh wow.
She came to Napa for the world premiere, and then actually she came to New York when we had our theatrical release. So she's always wanted to be a movie star. And so it was like we won 2 awards at our premiere, and she was like over the moon. And she lives a life longer than our movie every day. And I don't know if she understands how many millions of people have seen it, because she's sort of the way that she thinks is kind of whatever's right in front of her at the time. It's hard to it's hard to understand that. But she loves the music. She loves the animation. She, had a really enjoyed the process of being on camera all the time, which is something I can't say about most people. You know, it's hard. I hate being in front of the camera, and for a documentary subject to love being on camera, that was great for us. But I mean, she's a star. She's a total diva. Yeah.
She is. She's totally a star. Yeah, diva. I like that. Definitely a diva. Leah, so this is right now. It's on PBS. People can view it all over the country and on their favorite PBS station.
Yeah, it's right now. We just started a 3-year run on PBS, so you can watch an hour-long version of the film on PBS. The full-length feature is on Vimeo on demand, but also Amazon or Amazon Prime, and a couple of other online platforms, but those are the easiest. And then we have a website, it's bigsonia.com, with more information and the educational version. And we have some other things in the works, including an immersive project that will launch probably this fall, where you can have a conversation with Sonia online, which is interesting.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Wow.
Yeah, we're still going. I mean, she just left me a message yesterday. She's 96. So as long as she's still going, we feel like, well, we should keep going too.
Exactly. Well, everyone seek out Big Sonia. Be inspired by this amazing woman and this wonderful documentary, and I wish you much success with it, Leah. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for watching and letting me talk about it. It always feels very therapeutic now to rehash.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you've missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, you can go to my website, thejanpriceshow.com, where all the shows are archived, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, the iHeart Podcast Network, Spotify, Apple, you name it, we are there. You can also go to our YouTube channel, and while you're there, please like and subscribe, and also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Jan Price Show. Thank you all for listening.